Welcome to the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. These Red Smith Banquet throwbacks are exclusive interviews of sports legends, powerful media personalities, and influential coaches. You won't find these anywhere else. Subscribe below and enjoy.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, we have a special throwback for you this week. We're going to go and look at probably one of the all-time most incredible sports writers for the Green Bay Packers, and that is Lee Remmel. We had the special opportunity of having him at the Red Smith Sports Banquet in 2000. Lee was born in Shawano, probably best known for his 62 years with the Green Bay Packers as a sports writer, and later as a team employee. He covered, get this, his first game in 1945, worked with every coach from Dan Devine to Curly Lambeau to even Mike McCarthy. This is a stat that I think is incredible. He witnessed more than 100 Bear Packer games. It's incredible. 40 Super Bowls. A true legend, a true Green Bay Packer, if you want to call him a Packer, because he covered so much. Just a great opportunity for you to sit back, enjoy, and learn a little bit of the history of Lee Remmel.
Welcome, everybody, to the 35th Annual Red Smith Sports Award Banquet. Larry McCarren.
Thank you. Here tonight to honor Lee Remmel. And I go all the way back when Lee was still working for the Press-Gazette, and as a matter of fact, the first Packer article ever written about myself was written by Lee Remmel, and he probably doesn't remember this, but I do and my mom does, I can assure you, Lee. But during training camp, this was back in the days when, you know, it was rough and tough and that kind of thing, and they still had Nutcracker, you remember that? And I had a good day as a rookie. I mean, I had a good day, went against Nishki. I mean, I had a good day. And the headline in the Press-Gazette, it said, McCarren makes Nutcracker hit. And it was written, yes, it was written by Lee Remmel. And I can remember laying in the dorm over at Sensenbrenner at St. Norbert, reading about this. And man, I was kind of jacked up, I'll be honest. I really felt good about it. And reading Lee's words about me and so forth. And he described my looks as rugged map of Ireland features. And I'm sitting in bed reading this thing to my roommate, you know, another rookie guy, and I said, "What do you think that means?" And my roommate says, "It means you're ugly." Actually, he said, "But ugly." But I'll tell you what, I really do come with a unique perspective on Lee Remmel, because I not only was interviewed by him, but also I spent 12 years where he was shielding me from the press. And now since then, I've spent another 12 or 13 years where he's shielding the players from me. So it's a very, very unique, I've almost come full circle with Lee Remmel. But the thing about Lee is, and I've done this just for fun and sport, you can ask him almost any statistic, any number, like who was the Packers' leading rusher in the 1958 season, he'll have it for you. And in honor of that ability, I'd like to relate some of Lee Remmel's numbers. He's in his 27th year of service with the Green Bay Packers. He was a sports writer and columnist for the Press-Gazette, the Green Bay Press-Gazette, for 29 years. He has worked in one capacity or another all 33 Super Bowls. And today, the Packers named their 13th head coach, the 13th head coach in Packer history, and Lee Remmel has either covered or worked with every one of those people, from Curly Lambeau right on down to Mike Sherman. Now, that's a lot of quantity. Talking numbers, lots of quantity. But it translates, in the case of Lee Remmel, it translates into quality. As an illustration, he's been inducted into the Packer Hall of Fame. He's been the Wisconsin Sports Writer of the Year. Lee Remmel has his own sports award banquet named in his honor. honors athletes of all levels, raises money for scholarships. All those things you probably know. But again, I come here with, I think, a unique perspective. Lee Remmel, Mike Sherman will become the 7th head coach Lee Remmel has worked with. You talk about a balancing act and serving two masters, meeting the coach's demands with our and the media's needs. Lee Remmel is also a guy you can call up anytime, day or night, and it's never a problem because he's been there. He's been there on your side of the fence. Lee Remmel is a man that he works for the Packers in public relations. He'll remember your middle name, your hometown, and your birthday. He'll treat you like you're somebody, even when you're still a nobody. And all in all, Lee Remmel will treat you with respect, courtesy, and dignity, regardless of which side of the fence you're on, be it player or reporter. Lee has always worked in positions that are in the background, but he comes here tonight in the foreground because he is a true All-Pro. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the Red Smith Award for the year 2000, Lee Remmel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Not bad for a guy from Shawano. Not too bad to be a dinosaur either, I've discovered. Thank you, Larry, for that extremely kind introduction. You were right, it was worth 2 Super Bowl tickets. Unfortunately, they're on layaway until January of 2002. My profound appreciation to the Red Smith Committee, certainly for this prestigious honor. In the Fox River Valley, according to Chairman Mike Reese, it's the closest thing you can get to being canonized, even if you're Catholic. There is one other I would like to thank this evening because the idea to present me with this honor originated with the late Danny Ornstein, the former general chairman of this banquet for many years. My thanks also in his memory to his widow Marilyn and to his family. At this point, I had intended to mention my wife, a remarkable woman who has been encouraging me every step of the way for 51 years, but she didn't want me to do it, so I'm not going to do it. But she is a truly remarkable woman, and I'm delighted that she's made the trip with me for 51 years. Before going any further, I would like to congratulate all of the young students honored here earlier this evening. Upon hearing their impressive accomplishments, my modest achievements at Shawano High School back in the 40s pale by comparison. My chief claim to fame at Shawano High School, by the way, was on an incredibly blustery Halloween night in my sophomore year. I and a few of my more adventurous classmates went out and tipped over 39 outdoor privies around Shawano Lake and Shawano County. I think it's safe to say that remains an interscholastic record. Seriously, receiving the Red Smith Award has a very special meaning for me because I knew Red Smith. In fact, I knew him well for more than 30 years. As a matter of fact, when he was a line coach for the New York Football Giants back in the mid and late 1940s, and I was a very young sports writer, yes, I was young once, for the Green Bay Press-Gazette, I had occasion to interview him after a few games. Typically, he was gracious and genial. Of course, he had every right to be gracious and genial because his Giants in 1948 edged out the Packers 49-3, and in 1949, 34-10 in Curly Lambeau's last year as head coach of the Packers. That, by the way, that's kind of ironic because Red Smith broke in as a coach under Curly Lambeau. His very first coaching job was with the Packers in 1935 as the very first assistant coach in Packer history, and he coached under Curly through the 1943 season. Receiving the Red Smith Award also has a special meaning for me because of the impressive list of the previous recipients, such as Paul Molitor and Robin Yount, and the man who is with us tonight, Pat Richter, and, of course, the legendary Johnny Blood McNally. Speaking of Pat Richter, 3 Rose Bowl victories is not the only credential that he has on his resume. It was Pat Richter who caught in fact, I'm sure he occupied a very prominent place in Vince Lombardi's memory book before he passed on. It was Pat Richter who caught the winning touchdown pass as the college All-Stars upset Vince Lombardi's Packers in the 1963 college All-Star game. And to add insult to injury, the man who threw that pass was a Green Bay native, quarterback Ron Vanderkellen. Pat, I don't think Vince ever forgave you for that. In all honesty, I'm a little amazed and to some extent humbled by receiving this coveted award, because all I feel that I have done is work hard for 50 years or so at the one thing that I know how to do. As with many kids today, I developed a strong interest in sports early when I was growing up in Shawano. My father, my older brother, and I listened intently to Russ Winnie on the radio, delivering his dramatic descriptions of Don Hudson's remarkable feats during the late 30s and early 40s, as well as those of the Clark Hinkle and Arnie Herber, and a little later on, of course, those of Tony Canadeo, the Grey Ghost of Gonzaga. I had been ill from the time I was 10 until a brain tumor was removed when I was 15, and although I cheated a little, I wasn't supposed to participate in strenuous physical activity at the time, and my childhood hopes of being another Hudson, which were triggered when I caught 3 touchdown passes for the 7th grade at Sacred Heart School, thus were thwarted. My frustration led to my becoming an omnivorous reader. I read everything that came my way, not only sports stories, but novels by W. Somerset Maugham and Louis Bromfield, even a book entitled What a Young Girl Ought to Know, which I found pretty interesting. I was a teenager, and that was very interesting. But anyway, that in turn led to my starting to write editorials for the Sacred Heart Parish newspaper in 8th grade and becoming sports editor of a weekly newspaper as a freshman. Near the end of my freshman year, the Green Bay Press-Gazette hired me as a correspondent for Shawano and Shawano County, and I found myself covering virtually everything in the area very quickly, including 2 murders in a 3-day span, a projected precedent-setting strike against the federal government by the Menominee Indian tribe, city government, sports, even weddings. Out of high school in 1944, I was invited to join the Press-Gazette staff and found my desk next to that of George Whitney Calhoun, the man who had called the very first meeting of the Packers team in 1919 and still functioned as the Packers part-time publicity director. One day, he said to me in the summer of 1945, "Hey kid, how would you like to write the Packer press guide?" I said, "What's there in it, Cal?" He said, $10 and 2 season tickets. I said, "I'll take it." What I subsequently produced was hardly a literary masterpiece, but it did serve to whet my appetite for a closer association with the Packers. Accordingly, I went to the sports editor of the paper a little later on to let him know that I know how to write sports. And I said, if I pay my own expenses to the game against the Detroit Lions in Milwaukee on Sunday, would he allow me to write the sidebars, interview the head coaches, and write the notes, et cetera? Somebody else is covering the game itself. He gave me the green light, and I lucked out in a big and historic way. The Packers were trailing 7-0 early in the second quarter. Now listen to this. Don Hudson went on a rampage. He caught 4 touchdown passes, kicked 5 extra points, 29 points. To this day, the most points scored in one quarter of one game by one player in the history of the National Football League. The Packers went on to score 41 points, unanswered points in that quarter. To this day, they share the record for the most points ever scored in one quarter of one NFL game. And the Packers went on to win the game 57-21, and the 57 points they scored are the most points they've ever scored in a regular season game. So the next year, I joined the Press-Gazette sports department after proving that I could write sports, and I was assigned as the second man in Packer coverage, a stroke of great good fortune for me. I spent the next 27 years on the sports desk before joining the Packers in 1974. Over those 54 years, I've had the opportunity, as Larry mentioned earlier, to work around all 12 head coaches the Packers have had and interview and write about literally hundreds of players. In the process, I've collected a host of memories, too many to cover here, but here are a few of my favorites. An interview with Curly Lambeau in 1962 when he was being inducted into the State Athletic Hall of Fame. I said, Curly, when you started this team in 1919, did it ever occur to you that the Packers and pro football would become what they have become? He said, heck no, I just wanted to have a football team and play football. A memory of Vince Lombardi in February of 1959 taking over the Packers, totally obscure nationally, taking over the Packers with great conviction. He said at his first news conference at the old Hotel Northland, you will be proud of this football team because I will be proud of it. Another memory of Vince leaving for Washington 10 years later, February of 1969, I happened to be privileged to be the only member of the Wisconsin Media Press Corps at the airport as he left by private plane. He said, "It's been a great 10 years. Speaking for myself, in my 2 careers, it's been a great 50 years. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing." Thank you.
Please subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we post another great episode or interview. Download the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for your support.